It became quite obvious to me from my very first conversations with Mr. Modi that he had a suspicion about journalists and about writers, and felt that some people, particularly I think English-speaking writers, had been very hard on him in the past. And what I was fascinated, having been a spin doctor myself for a political party, was the way in which he dealt with the media and tried to dominate the agenda, I think very, very successfully, throughout the campaign. So I asked him quite a lot about that. And he told me how he was very careful to avoid giving interviews until he was ready to give interviews. He wanted the media to write about what he said at his rallies, or perhaps what he said on social media. And then he surprised me by saying, in February, this is page 157 of the book, in February he took a calculated risk. Quotation from Mr. Modi, "I decided that I would not be available to the media," he told me. "I did this intentionally to create a vacuum and get attention because of the vacuum." Modi used the time to busy himself with practicalities like overseeing the selection of candidates. Thus, he said, "The month of February was no interviews and mostly silence. My supporters were anxious and my detractors were happy, little realizing that this was my strategic intent as we readied for the last few days before polling began." And with polling staggered across 9 different phases, when he emerged from his self-imposed media purdah, he did it with one eye firmly on the election calendar. The TV interviews, he said, another quotation, were carefully planned before any election in a state, and I was specifically doing the interviews focused on where the elections were going to be held. What this did was to allow me to customize my message all the time and not to spill all the beans at once, and to keep the curiosity of the people alive in terms of what I would say next. And I think that was a very good example of how he really understands how the media works and how to get his message across as effectively as possible, even if sometimes that means saying nothing.